Our top story this morning, a Lake County man identified as 52-year-old Michael Eugene Wheeler was found dead in the Mission Mountains area after a search that began Monday night. Lake County Sheriff Don Bell said Wheeler became separated from his son at about 10:30 p.m. on Monday while they were searching for shed antlers.
Well, we got a call the 2nd of this month at about 10:13 p.m. The son called in, and him and his dad had got separated when a heavy snowstorm blew in, and then we called out search and rescue, and local volunteers went up and searched.
Bell said Wheeler's body was located Tuesday mid-morning.
Then yesterday morning continued on with a new team, and we probably had about 50 searchers up there, and the gentleman was found yesterday morning, and then it took about 10:45 in the morning, and then we went up and recovered him, and he's been sent to the Montana Crime Lab to come up with further details on what he passed from.
Bell urged caution for anyone who chooses to walk or hike in the mountains during winter weather conditions. A former chemist at Montana State Crime Lab in Missoula has pleaded not guilty to charges that he took methamphetamine left over from samples being tested for suspected drugs in criminal cases. KGVO broke the story about the clerk's office, saying Derek Thrush entered his pleas yesterday during an appearance before District Judge Karen Townsend. Thrush faces 3 counts each of felony criminal possession of dangerous drugs, misdemeanor theft, and misdemeanor official misconduct. Court records say Thrush's brother-in-law told police that the chemist had confessed to using meth taken from the lab. Thrush allegedly obtained the drugs from samples submitted for analysis by law enforcement agencies. The next hearing for the case is May 1st. 41-year-old Anthony Rex Hoskinson, already in the Missoula County Jail on the revocation of a deferred sentence for DUI, has now been charged with felony sexual intercourse without consent. Deputy Missoula County Attorney Brian Lowney provided details of the current charges against this defendant.
Back near the turn of the new year on December 31st, the victim in this case reported that Mr. Hoskinson had sexually assaulted her. She indicated it happened the night prior on December 30th, and that Mr. Hoskinson, she went to bed, found Mr. Hoskinson on top of her in the middle of the night.
Lowney said Hoskinson will face the consequences of the revocation of his deferred sentence, and then the district court judge would handle his plea to the charge of sexual intercourse without consent.
The charge is sexual intercourse without consent. The possible penalty is up to 20 years in the state prison and a $50,000 fine. The affidavit went out simply because the investigation was complete. He will appear in justice court either today or tomorrow to have his initial appearance on the charges.
Hoskinson appeared in Missoula Justice Court, is currently in the Missoula County Jail on $50,000 bond. Deborah Lamb, chairman of the Montana Republican Party, released the following statement yesterday on the Montana Democrats' efforts to suppress our right to vote, and I quote, "I think most Montanans would be shocked to learn that Montana Democrats are actively working to deny Montanans their right to vote this election. The Democrats feel so threatened by the Green Party and their candidates this year that they've now resorted to outright voter suppression. Their talk of inclusivity only extends up to the point where they feel threatened that their votes will leave them for another candidate. So the Democrats are now throwing up obstacles with one goal in mind: deny the Green Party and their candidates ballot access," end quote. Quoting again, their behavior is appalling, according to the Montana Republican Party. On Wednesday, Montana Attorney General Tim Fox filed a brief before the U.S. Supreme Court to oppose the Internet sales tax being levied by the state of South Dakota.
The state of South Dakota recently passed a set of statutes imposing taxes on Internet retailers from out of state, out of South Dakota, requiring them to not only collect but pay sales taxes in South Dakota.
Fox recalled how several years ago he had led a coalition of states with no sales taxes, sending letters to Congress encouraging them to vote against a piece of legislation that would have set up a nationwide Internet sales tax.
As you know, Montanans have been adamant through the years that they do not want sales taxes. And of course, having to collect sales taxes from other states and municipalities, many of which, if not most of which, can't live within their means, is something that could be a tremendous financial burden, not to mention the regulatory burden to Montana small businesses who do sales over the Internet.
In the brief, Attorney General Fox demonstrated how Montana businesses could be affected by South Dakota's law, even with a small amount of sales. Here it is. Quote, as an example, a person in South Dakota may, after searching for Huckleberry products online, order a Huckleberry lollipop for $1 from the Huckleberry Patch, a small business located in Hungry Horse, Montana. If this process is repeated 200 times, the threshold would be met for $200 in sales. The huckleberry patch would then be required to collect and distribute the sales tax revenue generated by their South Dakota sales, end quote. Technically, the first day of spring was March 20th, but it still feels pretty wintry in much of Montana. Horticulturist Sandy Perrin with the Missoula Plant Clinic said the ground is still too cold to start sowing seeds for many garden plants.
Just checked soil temperatures yesterday, and they are running about 40 degrees, but that is still pretty cool for planting any vegetable seeds. There's some what we call the cold crops out there, which are things like peas and lettuce, spinach, things of that nature that you can put in the ground typically when the soil temperatures are closer 45 to 50 degrees.
Although planting may not be advisable at this time, there's still lots of green thumb things to do.
It's a great time to take some soil tests and get that shipped off to know what your nutrient requirement is, or buy a soil test kit at your local garden center or nursery. Now is a great time to aerate your lawn and thinking about getting that first application of fertilizer on. So once we do have some little bit warmer weather, it can get a good kick start.
The other big project to do in early spring is pruning your trees and shrubs before the blossoms begin to come out. The skeleton of what's believed to be a young Tyrannosaurus rex has been unearthed at the Hell Creek Formation in Montana. MTN News is reporting that researchers and students at the University of Kansas recovered the fossilized remains, which they estimate are about 66.5 million years old. The skeleton is considered to be one of the most preserved and complete ever found. According to the university, only a handful of young T-Rex remains have ever been recovered. They're uncovered, rather. The specimen includes a complete section of a dinosaur's upper jaw, including all of its teeth, as well as parts of the skull, feet, hips, and backbones. The History Channel calls the discovery, quote, 1 in 100 million, end quote. Tests are currently being done at the University of Kansas lab, and a full report is expected in the coming months. Our news talk time now is 6:12.
Newstalk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station. Rain likely today with our high temperatures in the mid-40s. A cold front will pass through, bringing windy weather and some colder temperatures. Overnight tonight, we'll see our lows dropping into the 20s with 1 to 3 inches of snow possible. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for NBC Montana.